Welcome to ExplainerCast, episode 29. I'm your host, Dave Smith.
And this is Shane Swenson.
And we have some explaining to do. Today, we're going to talk about a whole collection of friends that are all related to quicksand.
Yes. And Dave, you grew up in a similar era to me, and my wife and I have talked about how when we were growing up, there were a set of things we were told, especially in elementary school, were going to factor significantly in life that we needed to be terrified of. Quicksand was one of those things.
Yeah.
Comic books, like people just disappeared into quicksand on a regular basis.
Yes.
I thought I'd have to stop, drop, and roll more often than I have.
That's true. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, like watch out in case you catch on fire.
That's right. Just because, open flames just out in the wild. And anyway, amongst the list of things that we were sure we had to be well prepared for, at least society was sure we had to be ready for, quicksand was near the top of the list. And I don't know about you. Actually, since moving to Utah, I have encountered quicksand, but not nearly as prevalent as I thought it was going to be growing up.
I have not really encountered it much, but just as an example of the culture that we grew up in, I'll call Exhibit A the Princess Bride.
Of course.
Where they go into this jungle dangerous area, and it has both quicksand and spontaneous flames that come out of the ground.
That's true. Just the perfect product for the perfect time, I guess.
Yeah. No, I can't say that I've ever encountered something where I was definitely sure it was quicksand.
Okay. And partly that might be because the experience is actually much less dramatic most of the time than at least how it was popularly portrayed when we were kids. Like where,
oh, yeah.
It was like, oh, you step onto this seemingly solid layer of mud.
And you will never get out.
Yes. In fact, all they'll see is like your hat floating on the surface. Like that's
that's right.
That's the end.
Exactly.
And most of the time, the situation's a little bit more mundane, which is like it's a few inches deep. And if you spend enough time kind of stomping and sloshing on it, you can kind of bury your feet in it, maybe. But rarely is it human swallowing.
Right.
But you can actually encounter it where it's deep enough to get stuck in it. There was a recent event actually in southern Utah. Did you hear about this?
This is news to me.
Okay. So the two places I've probably encountered quicksand the most are at some ocean beaches have what seems like the right kind of sand to do this, but in fact, the deserts in southern Utah, the desert streams where water is flowing and has a nice silt layer that it's picked up from the sandstone it flowed through, that's really where I've experienced quicksand the most. And this actually happened, I think, maybe a month or two ago down in Zion National Park. A hiker was hiking up a stream bed, which is a common thing you do in the desert, and they actually got stuck in quicksand. According to the story, they did everything they're supposed to do to get out, which is you try to spread your weight across more stable ground and stop pushing down into it with your feet or whatever body part is pushed in. But they got their legs so buried, they could not get themselves out and actually had to be rescued by search and rescue before they were able to be extracted from it.
Wow.
And so not submerged in it, but nevertheless, like fully stuck, unable to free themselves from it.
Oh, man. Which honestly might be worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Like if it's going to, and again, this was wintertime, so it got cold. I think like the leg that was stuck in it, got really cold. And so, if you were caught and exposed over a long period of time, I mean, it could be the end unless you did get a rescue. So
yeah,
it's good that they were able to use their cell phone to signal for help.
Incredible. Yeah, no, this is remarkably rare given what I was taught to believe.
Yeah, that it would
As a
just be
child.
like in your backyard waiting for you, in the sandbox.
Yeah, maybe on your way to school,
Yeah.
watch out for those quicksand.
That's right. So when I heard this story, it did get me thinking about how does quicksand work? Why is it in those places and not typically on the way to school? And then starting to think about, it turns out there's a lot of other materials that have some of the strange behavior that makes quicksand special. So I think let's dive into some of that. And the basic idea with quicksand is you actually can walk across it, but as you step on it and kind of the more you kind of wiggle your feet on it, it actually gets softer and it lets you sink into it. Like normally materials that we think of are either like one of the main phases are like a solid, a liquid, a gas, plasma if it's really hot.
Mm-hmm.
And typically solids support your weight. Liquids will let you sink in until you reach neutral buoyancy. Quicksand is kind of in between. Like it kind of behaves like a solid as you're walking across it, but it can sort of turn more liquid when you disturb it. And this is something that I think is actually a fluid. Its basis is water, but it has sand particles or other type of hard particles suspended in it, meaning kind of floating in it. And those particles are so close together that they'll effectively support your weight when you walk on them. But as you stand there and kind of wiggle or like rock your feet side to side, like if you encounter this at the beach or something, you can do this, you'll kind of sink down into it.
Yeah.
And it sort of turns more liquid, like right where you're standing. That's like the essential nature of quicksand that then can kind of slurp you in, but then doesn't usually want to let you come back out very easily.
That's the part that I've wondered about. It's like, what is it that makes it so hard to get out? Is it because when you try to use your hands to pull yourself out, you just don't have anything to grip on?
I think that's part of it is if you're in it, what you have to push back on is more quicksand. And so whatever you're pushing down on is going to sink in maybe more than you can't actually generate enough force to pull out whatever part of you is more deeply embedded. Like I think if you were next to a solid surface like a rock or a tree, you could probably pull yourself out slowly.
Yeah.
But it's when you're far enough into it that there's nothing more stable to gain purchase on. Like whatever you're pushing down on is losing faster than you're gaining on what you're trying to remove.
Yeah. Okay. Meanwhile, it does provide just a certain amount of resistance to get out of it. So it's not like water where you can just kind of run your hand past your side and your whole body will propel forward.
Yeah.
It's like it's like the worst of both worlds. It's like enough to slip into, but it's also heavy enough to stop you from getting out easily. I don't know. It's like it is a weird combination of factors, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And even like so the way it forms, it's water-based and the water kind of forms a seal. So I even wonder how much, like if you were trying to pull your foot out, just like the fact that you're pulling a vacuum, say at the bottom, like if you could stick like a hose down to push air down by your, say your foot, would that even give you the ability to pull out? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
But kind of like getting out of deep snow, the typical advice is again to try to spread your weight over as large a surface area as possible. So maybe like actually try to lie down, but be careful not to get sucked in more. But it's
exactly.
It's the pressure points that are the ones that are going to sink in the deepest. But again, for this particular situation, they weren't even able to do it. Anyway, this got me thinking about multiple things. And one is like, what makes quicksand sort of behave like a liquid as it's like absorbing, your pressure to it. But at the same time, like when you're moving across it more quickly, like it behaves like a solid. Like usually you can just walk across unless you stop and kind of wiggle around. And so there's a concept of something called a non-Newtonian fluid. It's a little bit of jargon. Newton referring to Sir Isaac Newton. And I guess in addition to his laws of motion, there's a Newtonian law for fluids, which essentially says, like if you think of if you're like stirring a drink or something like that, the harder you push on your stirring stick, the faster your stirring stick's going to move through the drink is like a simple way of thinking of it. The more you push on it, the more it's going to move in a linear relationship.
And the water doesn't increase its resistance. Well, yeah, so actually we probably need to clarify a little there.
Yeah.
As you increase the speed of the thing you're moving through, let's just say water, which is a good example of a Newtonian fluid, it does resist more, but the equation, like the formula is...
I think it's proportional.
It's at least quadratic, right?
That I don't know. Probably, and maybe this is a function of speeds. Like if you're thinking of like wind resistance and how
exactly,
that's non-linear with velocity. So I don't know. I thought at least at low speeds that it was effectively linear resistance relative to speed, but I could be mistaken there.
Okay, yeah. So it's the drag formula, right? So yeah, no, it is quadratic. It's a square of the velocity of the object moving through the water.
Okay.
So it's not to say that the nature of the water changes in any other way in response to the force of the thing moving through it, though. That's the point, right? Like that's what Newtonian means.
Yeah.
We haven't said the word viscosity yet, but maybe now's the time.
Yeah, and essentially another way to say it is that the more force that's applied, the rate at which the fluid deforms or moves in response to that force will be linear to that force. So the harder you push, the more it's going to move locally, and then you're going to get what's called a shear gradient, where you're pushing on it. So you're moving a spoon through a glass of water. It's pushing directly, if you will, on some of the fluid, but then adjacent to it is sort of other being kind of dragged along. Essentially, the movement of that is going to be a function of how hard you push on it, and it's going to be essentially linear. Non-Newtonian fluids will either get stickier or slipperier, meaning it'll either be harder to push something through them or easier as you change the pressure or the stress on them.
Yes.
This is what makes things like quicksand behave in a non-intuitive way. I think as humans, we usually have intuition around the common case, and we kind of understand that. And then we have non-intuition around the uncommon case, and quicksand's one of those uncommon cases.
Yeah, totally.
And so in fact, in the quicksand case, I think what happens is as you're pushing on it, it actually reduces the viscosity. It reduces the resistance to shear. And so it allows you to sink into it the more you're sort of activating it.
It becomes quicker.
Exactly. It becomes more lively. Yeah. And so it becomes more liquid as you wiggle in it. There are other materials where exactly the opposite happens, where the more you're pushing on them, they sort of lock up and they become more firm and more solid. Have you ever made something where you mix cornstarch and water, something sometimes called oobleck?
Absolutely, yeah. Really cool.
And so oobleck's an example of the kind of the opposite type of non-Newtonian fluid, where when you're stirring it slowly, it's fairly liquid, it flows. But like if you try to stir it really quickly, it almost like sets up solid.
Yeah. In fact, I've seen people launch oobleck at a wall and with a slow motion camera, and the way that it breaks when it hits the wall, it looks more like it's shattering than it's splashing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like those chunks will then sort of like melt back into liquid.
Yes.
As the strain
as
is
they're
removed.
falling.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, so you can basically punch it. Like if you punched a bowl of water, like from the top down into a bowl of water, it just kind of, your hand will go right through the bottom to the bottom of the bowl. But if you punch a bowl of oobleck, your hand will be stopped on the surface.
Yeah, the harder you hit it, the more it resists that. And you've probably seen videos where people have set up like big tubs of it and tried to like run across it. And as long as you go fast enough, it works. But as soon as you slow down and you come below that solidification point, it resumes its liquid property and it sucks you in.
What is the key factor that makes it harden? Is it a force or is it a speed of the thing moving into it?
So in my personal experience, like you could kind of squeeze it and it seems like it almost like dries it out, just from the pressure you put onto it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think also the shear, like trying to like stir it quickly will do the same thing. But again, you're applying a force directly to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it's kind of pressure activated and then there's like a side effect of that.
Yeah, because I mean, like if you were talking about people filling a pool with it and you walk across it, if you walk really slowly, like your body weight is still exerting the same amount of force on it with each footstep. But if you run, you're spending less time engaged with it, but also maybe more importantly, you're actually smashing it a lot harder.
You're applying a much higher force. Yeah, short-term
Mm-hmm.
high force. Yeah, I don't know if it's just the direct force or if it's a side effect of that force causing it to try to move, and the movement is what's causing it. I don't actually know, like at the particulate level, but
Mm-hmm.
it definitely does sort of harden under pressure.
Yeah.
So there's other examples of this. Another one that you could get or make is silly putty, and you can make something similar with like school glue, like white glue and borax,
Mm-hmm.
and you can make kind of like a putty. And those, again, if you like stretch them slowly, they'll sort of stretch and deform. Sometimes that's called plasticity. But if you like pull fast, they'll snap and break.
Yeah.
And even like silly putty is elastic. Like you can make a ball out of it and you can bounce it because it's like so readily going to like push back into its current shape, even though you can then deform it when you move it slowly.
Yeah, it's interesting because you can kind of rest it on your fingers and it'll slowly just kind of ooze around your fingertips, even if it started in ball form. But if you take that same ball and like throw it on the ground, it doesn't immediately splat into a puddle.
Right, exactly.
It'll bounce back.
And so, yeah, there's definitely a time constant to that of just like how quickly you can deform it before it breaks or shatters. So another one that deforms in slow movement but will break or shatter at high speed or high stress is actually snow. Have you never seen like snow that's flowing off of a roof like over days?
Yes, it looks like you've captured water in a photograph that's like in the process of falling, but it's actually like it's just hanging there.
Yeah, like a cresting wave that's about to break over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so like as snow slides down a roof, some of it's getting just kind of tipped off into space, and then gravity will kind of pull it down, and so you get this curl. And again, if it moves slowly enough over a long enough period of time, a snowpack can totally deform into a new shape. There, it's due to the interactions between the snow crystals themselves. Like they're kind of stuck together, but they can individually, the bonds, they can break apart, they can reform new bonds. And if all that holds slowly enough, the snow behaves kind of as a mass. But if you ever push on it quickly, it can then all just shatter and fall down and break apart. And in fact, that's actually one of the ways in which snow avalanches in the mountains happen, is when either because of a force applied or just overcoming natural resistance, the snow will go from kind of creeping down the hill, maybe measured in centimeters per day, to just like shattering and then sliding, at high speed down the hill shortly thereafter. Even though snow is ice and it's the frozen state of water, the solid form of water, it actually has this plasticity to it, which again, I don't know if it would strictly qualify as a result as a non-Newtonian fluid, but it is something that has the ability to deform as other non-Newtonian fluids do over time.
Yes. Very interesting. Is it true that all non-Newtonian fluids consist of some kind of solid particles suspended in the mass?
I'm not aware of any that are made of just like a single molecular product. All the ones I'm aware of have this kind of suspension of either solid particles suspended in a liquid or kind of like the polymer, individual molecules that directly interact with each other, which again, more like the putty case, is that really a fluid? I guess it flows, and maybe that's our definition here. So those, I guess they might be a single type of molecule. I don't know if there's any that, if there's always at least a couple different types of molecules interacting, or if you can get some type of polymer where it's just one type, just repeated over and over again, interacting with itself. But the liquid forms, I think, are generally suspensions.
Very cool. So mechanically connected, not chemically connected to each other.
I think so. Yeah. And again, at the atomic level, they're interacting in some way. But yeah, not a single like giant molecule or a crystal or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's another example of something that I think is non-Newtonian, because I think if you were to hit this hard enough, quickly enough, it would actually shatter kind of like glass. But we were just talking before the break about this thing that I think you hadn't heard of before called the pitch drop experiment. Do you want to explain a little bit of what you learned about this?
Oh, this blew my mind. It just every once in a while you come across something and you're like, how did I not know about this? So this experiment has been going on for 99 years.
Yeah.
It started in the year 1927, and a university professor took some pitch, which is like tar.
Yep.
Right? I guess it's kind of like the stuff you would, like asphalt almost, like something you would spread across the surface of a road.
I think it's one of the components of asphalt, and it's like the black sticky stuff in particular.
Exactly. So very low viscosity fluid.
High viscosity. It's very viscous.
Yes, high viscosity. Yes, got that backwards. So it moves very, very slowly. Like it's like even more viscous than molasses.
Yep.
Like cold molasses.
Yep.
And the reason I know it's more viscous than molasses is because of this experiment where they took a cone-shaped glass container with a hole in the bottom. So like imagine like a funnel, but it's made of glass. And they suspended it on a little stand, almost like an hourglass, and they filled the top with pitch.
Yeah, think of it as the top half of an hourglass, basically.
Yeah, the top half of an hourglass where the bottom is just open, and it's open to fall into another container.
Yep.
The pitch moves very slowly through this little hole. The hole's like half an inch in diameter, probably.
Yeah.
Maybe an inch, maybe half an inch, somewhere in there. It moves so slowly that it drops one drop approximately every 10 years.
Yeah.
Which is incredible to think. You could set up essentially an hourglass that will last well over 100 years.
Maybe it's a millennium glass.
Yes. Yeah, maybe it is. Because it doesn't look empty. Like when I look at the thing, at a picture of it online, it seems like it has a lot to go still.
Yeah. It's hard to tell how much is inside, but if you kind of look at, I guess, I can't tell if the center, because it shows it just for the side, like is it dipped in the middle? But even if it was only filled up to the current high line, there's still a lot to go in there. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'd say easily another 100 years.
Yeah. Yeah, so it may not make a millennium depending on, but definitely another century to go.
Yeah, exactly. They could refill it though, I guess, if you really wanted to.
I suppose.
And it's slowing down. That's the other crazy thing. So the most recent drop was almost 13 years ago. I guess it was 2014. And my mind is blown. So we are due for another drop here in the next year or two. Could happen this year. There have been some anomalous drop durations between drops. There was one that was only 6 months, but most of them are at least 10 years, and it's getting slower over the last few.
Yeah.
And so here you have an example, right, of the same kind of fluid. I guess you would definitely call this non-Newtonian. And boy, does it move slow.
Yeah. And the reason I call it non-Newtonian is I think if you were to try to move it faster, it just breaks. But if you let it go slowly enough, it actually flows like a fluid, even though like if you just go look at it, or if you were allowed to touch it and feel it, like it would feel like it's solid. It would feel kind of almost like glass, I think. Or maybe it feels sticky. I'm not sure. But yeah, the fact that it just slowly oozes. This reference says 2 million times more viscous than honey and about 20 billion times the viscosity of water.
20 billion times more viscous than water. So you can go to a website called the10thwatch.com, and the reason it's the 10th watch is they're excited to see the 10th drop. And I don't know, there's something so poetic and beautiful about this experiment that's been continuously operating for the last 100 years. It's in Australia at the University of Queensland. And if you go to the10thwatch.com, you can watch this thing. And literally what you see is a clear funnel with a bulbous black ball hanging from the bottom. And that is raw pitch that has been forming. Boy, it just looks to me like it wants to fall off. But I think we're probably at least a year away still.
Yeah. It so makes me want to see a time lapse of the last 10 years and see, see this thing forming. And then, I mean, I don't know enough to say if you could extrapolate based on how other fluids in similar constructs form and drop, like if you'd be able to predict when this one will go. But yeah, right now it's just a waiting game.
Yeah. It's like more boring than watching paint dry because it takes longer, actually.
That's right. Yeah, because at the current rate, like it could be the next 1 to 5 years.
Yeah. I'm watching, there are time-lapse videos, sure enough, and it's kind of not very dramatic because they count when the bulb, like that big blob, they count it when it touches the bottom of the beaker, and it still has a stream connected back up to the top. It doesn't detach and fall like a water droplet.
It's not high enough to fully do a free fall. Okay.
Yeah, it'll just stay like a column.
And then do they just cut it off, or what happens next?
They must, because the time-lapse videos I've seen, they don't go to what they do with it next.
Okay.
But I'm sure there's a procedure for that to maintain the consistency for the last 100 years.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, okay, I saw another time-lapse, and it did actually disconnect, but it's really long. It's like a 6-inch long thing.
Like it almost pulls like a thread, like pulls itself to a fairly thin.
Yeah, and then it kind of just falls to the side when it detaches.
Yeah.
And today it's in a different place today than it was 12 years ago when I see this drop in 2014. And so they've definitely been moving it around a little bit.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes sense.
Yeah, like you said, longest running continuous sort of modern science experiment. I'm sure buildings have come and gone in that time frame.
I mean, nations have come and gone.
That's true.
It's like it's actually kind of remarkable that the nation of Australia and even this university still exist.
Yep.
I don't know, but I think it's been operating under the same university title for the last 100 years.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. I'm actually super surprised I'd never heard of this. I'm really grateful you shared it with me.
Awesome. Okay. Any other weird fluids that we need to talk about, Dave?
Weird fluids, probably yes. Non-Newtonian fluids, I don't know.
Are they non-Newtonian? Who knows?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that was, again, the list that came to mind in response to seeing that quicksand was real and actually dangerous. So do be careful if you encounter it. Like, play, but stay close to the edge, maybe.
Yeah. And don't confuse the remedies. If you fall into quicksand, do not stop, drop, and roll.
Ooh. Actually, I wonder. I agree. On first thought, maybe not the best move to like further expose yourself to it. But is that in fact the move that'll get you out of it without sinking in deeper? Maybe it's the universal advice.
All emergencies can benefit from stopping, dropping, and rolling.
Swarm of bees, stop, drop, and roll.
Yeah, maybe. Parachuting, skydiving accident.
Yeah, stop, drop, and roll.
You'll naturally drop. That's the thing. You can't stop though.
Yeah, the Earth's going to stop you. But now there's something called a parachute landing fall, which is a controlled drop and roll, if you will. It's a sort of like if you're trying to learn how to fall, like in a martial art or something, and you kind of learn how to spread the force across the impact. It's true. You kind of stop, drop, and roll. It's more to the side, but maybe that advice is more universal than I thought.
There you go. It is. It literally is the universal, the universal response. Which, fun fact, I won't belabor this too long, but in my neighborhood, there was actually a skydiving crash where the chute would not deploy. The skydiver landed in the neighborhood, and survived.
Wow.
Amazingly. It was interesting because it was, or not, I wouldn't say interesting, but it was particularly a poignant moment because it was like the uncle of a child, and the uncle was going to swoop in on a parachute and surprise the child on their birthday or something. And instead, he kind of just landed with a thud and, broke a ton of bones. But he did live, which is incredible.
That is incredible.
He must have really stopped, dropped, and rolled correctly.
Indeed. Well, good. I'm glad that had a good outcome. And so another endorsement for the advice.
Yes. That's right. All right. Well, we had some explaining to do. Did we explain ourselves?
I think we tried. We'll have to take it at that.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Thanks, Shane. It was great.
All right. See you, Dave.